All right, thank you so much for staying with us. This is our continuing coverage. Let's continue with the discussions and our coverage here on an extended version of News Center. And just under 3 hours before this year's budget statement is read in Parliament, the nation is expectant, waiting to hear what the Treasury CS Henry Rotich will announce. Our reporters are stationed across the country and they will be giving us expectations and reactions. Our business anchor Abi Agina is in Parliament where the main event will be. He has already been speaking to Majority Leader Aden Duale and Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. on their expectations, and here are their responses.
Revenue leakage, to the extent, therefore, that both at county level and at national level, you have a lot of income that is being collected that is not finding itself either into bank accounts or is not being banked or is not being accounted for. The question that KRA must be able to ask is whether they have completely assessed the situation to the extent that they are taxing everybody who needs to be taxed. Is everybody paying their taxes? But on the debt level, that is something that should concern us. And from what I know is that the CS Treasury, instead of saying that we have borrowed, we are sustaining our debt, is to say, how are we going to pay our debts in future? Are we raising enough local revenue to be able to sustain our debt? We do not want a situation where we are borrowing for luxury. You're borrowing to consume, a consumer budget. And therefore, my concern about the budget still remains, and particularly on debt. And let me say this, being a senator and a person who is concerned about counties, what Kenyans do not know, that the effect of borrowing on the counties is that the way the constitution is structured is that we have to, first of all, consider the debt before we allocate revenue to counties. So the more we borrow, we reduce the bottom lines.
This budget is basically the report that we passed yesterday. Because under this system, the budget making process is a function of the National Assembly as per the Constitution. So in terms of budget estimate and allocations to various government ministries and departments and other offices and agencies, that I can speak. But of course, the taxation measures, either raising or reducing, will be done, will be tabled this afternoon by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury when he brings the finance bill. But of course, this budget gears mainly deals with and has given an affirmative in terms of allocation to infrastructure, to manufacturing and industrialization.
All right, Majority Leader Aden Duale there commenting about his expectations on the budget. I just want us to cross over live again to my colleague Abi Agina. Abi, thank you so much for staying put for us in Parliament. Of course, you have been speaking to a number of other legislators. What more are they expecting from this year's budget, especially now that it is an election year? And legislators have come out to say that they want a send-off package. Have you spoken to them about this, and maybe that it may not be possible for them to go home with that fat 40.2 billion shilling send-off?
Well, many thanks, Betty. Indeed, a lot of expectations here from Parliament as the 11th Parliament goes towards the budget process today. Today, the budget will be tabled by the CS Henry Rotich. But really, Betty, majority of the leaders we've been able to speak to, some are saying that the send-off package is unnecessary and everyone has to bite the bullet and accept that they won't be getting this package. Others are quite apprehensive about it. They feel like they haven't served their full term, so they deserve that package. So it's a dicey kind of situation, Betty. And of course, we'll be speaking to Richard Onyonka, who sits in the Budget Committee, in a short while. But Betty, I don't know, from your side of things, it seems like majority of Kenyans are quite concerned about the high cost of goods and, of course, the aspects around the cost of living as well, Betty.
Yes, indeed, Abby. Many Kenyans, of course, they want the basic commodities, the prices to go down. Talking about milk, flour, bread. You know, right now bread stands at about 50 shillings. Milk, the same thing. And therefore, what Kenyans really, even from the people who are tweeting me, remember we had asked on our Twitter poll, you know, what are their expectations? And everybody is not. No one is talking about healthcare. Nobody is talking about security. The tweets I'm getting, people are just saying that they want the cost of basic commodities to come down so that many Kenyans can put food on the table for their families. We're having a conversation with Ashley Mazuri, and we're talking about agriculture, the need to maybe inject more money into agriculture so that more farmers can support more families, you know, subsequently. That's, you know, those are some of the reactions, Abby, that I'm getting from Kenyans calling me up on Twitter.
Interesting. So, Betty, allow me to now bring in Richard Onyonka, who is a member of the Budget Committee here at the National Assembly, just to pick his mind on some of the expectations and concerns that he might have with this 2.62 trillion shilling budget, which is it actually is up by around 350 billion compared to last year, which was at 2.3 billion. Betty, well, thank you very much, Mheshimiwa, and of course, many expectations around the budget. I don't know what is in store for Kenyans as you do sit in the Budget Committee.
Well, thanks again. I wanted to say that, first of all, it took a long process. It actually takes nearly a year for this budget to be brought from Parliament, debated in Parliament, and then we sit in committee, and then take it back to the Treasury, and then right now the CS is going to come and discuss it,
Sure.
or tell Kenyans what he has done. Through that process, there are a lot of things which came out. And for many of us, I would most probably bring out about 5 items. Item number 1, I feel even when I was in the committee, you know, when we are discussing and debating which items are going to be in or out, normally the way our parliamentary system is set up is that the majority will always have their way.
Sure.
But there are times when we agree in general terms. And one of the issues that we were discussing and we did not agree on, but the majority had their way, is that we are constantly having a budget which has got a huge deficit. Mm-hmm. Our deficit has been increasing. From the time when President Kibaki was there, we were about 220 billion. Right now, we're at 970 billion. That's a lot of deficit. There is money we are spending.
Rise.
Yes, it's money we are spending that we actually don't have. And another item that we realized is that we are now spending the money, even when we are allocating the money to some of the ministries and departments, they don't have the absorption capacity. That's why you'll hear some ministries will return 8 billion, others will return whatever amount is. And usually when you have allocated an amount of money to a ministry or a department which doesn't utilize its money on time, then there's a possibility of the misuse of that money, or that money being diverted into a purpose that it was not meant for.
Is this because of the red tape in government?
Normally it is, but also if you look at government, there is no government department that ever wants his money to be reduced. The reason for that, they actually call it a bad omen. They want money to always increase, which is supposed to imply that they're actually doing very good work.
Sure.
But normally that is never the case. Mm-hmm. The other issue that we found out is that some of the budgetary allocations which we as a committee have brought to the budget, normally you'll have a statement being given from the executive that this was an executive order, we transferred money from this department to this, and we didn't have to ask the budgetary committee or parliament for that matter. Mm-hmm. This time it was reduced. Last year it was extremely abused, but it's working on well. We also felt, some of us, like many members of the opposition, we felt that we needed to increase the social transfers for the old people, the widows and the orphans. Like in my constituency, I'm giving that money to about 500 elderly people, maybe 100 widows, and about 100 children. We feel that the government needs to be more people sensitive especially to our very poor people, so that we can increase the social transfers to a level whereby, like in a constituency, you should have about 2,000 or between 2,000 and 5,000 people, so that we can take care of the poverty that is affecting our people.
And just walk us through this budget breakdown, because we do know that last year we did see a number of tax measures taken up by the minister, the CS. When it comes to taxing cosmetics, we did see importation of vehicles was also up in his radar, where he also put some taxes there. This year, any surprises we might be getting out of this budget?
Actually, the only good news out of this budget is the fact that for the first time since, let me say not the first time, since the last 3 years, this will be the first budget where the CS has not increased taxes for any item. And the reason for that is that when we discussed in the budget committee, the CS said the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta, Jubilee government, was beginning to feel the pressure from the public that items are becoming very expensive, fuel is expensive, food is expensive, everything has just shot up. And therefore, if they were to increase any more taxes for the public, then the public is definitely going to react negatively. And you know, this is the elections period. They have kind of retreated back to allowing last year's tax revenue to remain where it was.
But that's quite ironical, because if we are not going to introduce new taxes, we're looking at the budget 2.62 trillion. KRA will be targeting to raise about 1.7, and then about 600 billion will be borrowing
from external sources,
external and domestic
funding.
So looking at this scenario, KRA has constantly been having that challenge of meeting its revenue collection targets, and now you're saying not more taxes. At the same time, we've raised KRA's target. Where is the missing link?
Thank you. The assumption that the government is making that most of the money that KRA is actually raising to increase the revenue is not domestic. The assumption the government is making is that any economist will tell you, once you realize that your local economy is not able to generate more revenue for you, then you look at the external aspect of it. And that includes, one, making sure that the port of Mombasa is much more efficient, much more effective, so that the goods which come are able to move very quickly. And the assumption that the government is making is because with the SGR railway line completed by June, there's a likelihood during the next financial year, goods will be traveling from Mombasa to the other East African countries within the region, which will increase the turnover, which will increase more revenue for the government. But in general terms, I believe that if you look at the way the economy is moving, what is critical in this country right now is to figure out how are we going to sort out the issue of the basic necessities. Do we have clean water? What is happening to the health services? The food. Why is food so expensive right now?
That's one of the issues Betty Chalo asked. Why is it so?
It is because we are right now spending a lot of capital investment into big projects which are infrastructure based. Those projects normally, instead of the money percolating and the money actually going down to the common wananchi, you find that the money is actually, like you've realized, most of the contracts and tenders are being done by the Chinese. The money goes back to China. If we could have taken, for example, the money that we are using, like this year, you're talking about 100 and maybe 16 billion shillings to do roads and other infrastructure projects. If these projects were being done by more local contractors and more local people, whereby this money directly goes to the common wananchi, then you would find that they have enough money to buy to buy goods and services. But at the same time, the problem you have, again, is that the inflation is creeping in for the simple reason that, yes, there is money which is increasing in terms of it being available to circulate, but at the same time, you don't have the goods which are affordable to the common wananchi, and then you have to look at the whole chain. Our roads are not delivering, fuel is expensive, everything is so expensive to an extent that bread, like they have been saying, unga is now increasing from 90 shillings that it was 3 years ago into 140.
Quite a sad state of events.
Yes, yes.
So what's in your wish list, if you were to mention it in brief? What's in your wish list as the CS tables his budget this afternoon?
He's going to say that he's not going to increase any taxes on common items or ordinary items for the Kenyan public. He will say that we have now given the county governments enough money, and we are not going to reduce the amount. He's going to say that the health centers, health referral hospitals under the revenue allocation bill have been given the money to those ones who want to buy the equipment. He'll say we are giving polytechnics more money, which was not there last year. He will say infrastructure has taken most of the money, health, education, and therefore, according to him, as a Jubilee CS, he'll say the economy will grow and the country is doing okay.
All right. Perfect place to end it. Many thanks, Richard Onyonka.
Thank you very much.
Member of Parliament for Kitutu
Chache
South, and also a member of the Budget Committee at in the National Assembly, talking to us on the sidelines of the budget, where we are expecting the budget speech to be read close to 3 hours from now. It will be at about 2 p.m. and we'll be giving you a live coverage wall-to-wall from this side of town. For now, that's where we wrap it up and cross over back to Mombasa Road.
Well, indeed, thank you very much, my colleague there, Abbe Agina, with, of course, bringing us incisive conversation, looking into just what to expect over the next few hours as we make that journey towards the budget. Of course, the time now being 2 hours, 24 minutes and 47 seconds to 3 p.m. when that statement is expected to be tabled in Parliament by the CS for the Treasury. That, of course, is Henry Rotich. We want to proceed on a short break, but just before we go, to introduce you to my panel here who will be taking up that conversation with me after the break. Of course, I have back with me FCP Fernandez Baraza. He is the national chairman of ISPAC, a man with a lot of experience in the energy industry, also doubling up as the managing director and CEO at the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company. We also have with us in studio Lydia Dirango. She is an expert in transfer pricing, senior manager from Ernst & Young, and of course, again, we have John Magu, who is a manager at PKF. Those and me, of course, back in a few minutes. Do stay with us here on KTN Business Today. We'll be back after just a couple of minutes.
This is KTN News.